Today I wanted to just throw out some random thoughts about the Iran peace deal. It's made the news with a $300 billion wow factor added in. And as my previous podcasts are, I'm looking at I don't know, an alternative view, a third take, maybe something other than right or wrong or good or bad, but something a little bit in between. So here we go in random thoughts from a soon-to-be former therapist. Today we're going to break down the proposed U.S.-Iran peace deal and the claim that the United States is paying Iran. The headliner number, $300 billion, has created a lot of confusion, though, so let's slow it down and look at what's real, what's political theater, and what the deal actually does. And, of course, I'm going to throw in a few snarky opinions, like this one. There is a $300 billion price tag attached to the Iran peace deal. It's worth noting that Iran has to meet terms to access this fund. In my view, as a former therapist and my random thoughts here, any peace deal that includes $600 or $300 or even $100, $300 billion is a buyout. It's not an arrangement for peace. But let's talk about what the deal actually is, and besides the rhetoric and the opinion, the embellishment that you might get from a snarky former therapist. The framework is conditioned agreement. It's not a payout. Iran only gets benefits if it meets the strict requirements, just largely around nuclear arms development, reducing regional aggression, complying with inspections, notice its inspections continuing, scaling back proxy activity, and if Iran doesn't comply, it gets nothing. Well, the news is also trying to say that it isn't nothing, that it is nothing in the first place, at least in actual US dollars. But let's just go on to some more of my snarky or third alternative view opinions. These conditional agreements with Iran are not new. It's like breaking news. We've come to a peace deal with Iran. Administrations under Nixon, Ford, both of the Bushes, I don't know about Clinton or not, but Obama and now Donald, they've made peace deals with Iran, going back to Carter, I believe. Each have touted the uniquenesses of these arrangements, and many are shaking friendly hands for the media, as if the two lifelong foes are friends. Makes a good media shot, I guess. There's a misunderstanding here, indeed, about the $300 billion, sorry. It's coming from Iran's neighboring states, apparently. Get this point, though, and private investors. Private investors? So there's a financial return on this peace deal somehow. I mean, I wonder what Iran has to produce to satisfy the stockholders or those private investors. Non-nuclear weapons, maybe? Conjectured question, just to be clear. Back to some more facts. The $300 billion misunderstanding. The key fact is the United States is not paying Iran. That's legit. The $300 billion refers to a potential reconstruction and development fund backed by the Gulf states, so neighboring states to Iran, private investors, not U.S. taxpayers. Probably none of the investors would be U.S. taxpayers. Snark, snark. You could think of it as a locked vault. Iran only gets access if it meets every requirement. And history speaks to that. So let's look at some more opinion, some more snark maybe from former therapist or soon-to-be former therapist. So this deal, supposedly brokered by the U.S., is clear to say that U.S. taxpayers are not going to flip the bill. The agreement that the funds for the $300 billion is a conditional money vault. It's funded based on the what-ifs in the agreement. Some credibility here goes to Donald Trump, of course. He is self-proclaimed and a self-published artist in closing deals. Now, back to my earlier thought, Iran has been agreeing to administration deals for probably a generation or more. Who thinks that this matters? Well, Iran will, as they'll find a way to partner with their neighboring countries with a blind eye blessing from the U.S. to continue business as usual, and then they'll get the funds or some portion of the funds, and they'll continue their self-proclaimed right to develop nuclear weapons until the U.S. decides or Israel decides to bomb Iran's production centers again. Emphasis added on again. Generation, maybe. And what then? The Iranians will block the Strait of Hormuz, as they've done. Gas prices will bust another golden nugget. That, of course, hits the U.S. citizen, falling on the backs of us. And around 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 and around. again. I don't know if I've said that enough. Some more facts. What the U.S. is actually offering is sanctions relief. It's not cash. So the U.S. will stop blocking Iran from earning its own money, but only after verified compliance. So that verified compliance has to be telling, because this is not a freebie project here. There's no upfront payment, no direct transfer, no taxpayer dollars. But again, remember that verified compliance thing? So let's hear some more opine. Sanctions release still frees up money and it moves it back into Iran, so there's money. Again, using a deal-making political show of progress. That was snark there with the words show of progress. Talking about $300 billion seemingly as fanfare for the Iranians more than anyone else. To assume that this country will back down from its stated sovereignty to build and rebuild and continue to build nuclear weapons, again, going back a generation. And even if there's no direct exchange of money, as everyone says, but relieving the sanctions flows the money, surely U.S. banks make some interest off of those Iranian dollars, don't you think? The U.S. can control that assets, if you will, by blocking the access for Iran to its own money or not. But as soon as it's unblocked, there's some interest in it, I'm sure, for you and I and the good old USA. But unblocking banking sanctions might just be a banking bargaining tool. I don't know. Back to some more facts. Why people think the U.S. is paying Iran? Well, the media is a big one. When you hear that there's $300 billion involved, like, oh my God, we're paying $300 billion. The number is big. It's huge, as Donald Trump might call things. Political messaging amplifies the confusion. And then people remember probably the unrelated 2016 settlement and assume that the 1.7 billion or whatever that was in 2016 is familiar. But the facts don't really support the idea of a U.S. payout. There's the summary. On random thoughts from a soon-to-be former therapist, huge numbers are no doubt in motion in the Iran peace deal, where bombings still continue at random. It's a peace deal where bombings still continue at random. How peaceful is that? You know, just an occasional drone attack or a helicopter attack. If it's not from the U.S., it'll be from the favored ally, Israel. Sounds like a great plan. It's almost as if the U.S. and Israel would think Iran was not smart enough to know anything Israel's doing is with the blessing of the United States. But hey, some things, if not anything, is possible, right? Wrong. Bottom line here is, even if this millionth time around deal, with or without the direct emphasis on direct, exchange of money to Iran does take some effect. The U.S. will spend its national security budgets babysitting Iran's behavior as it's done before. 24-hour monitoring their every move so that some weeks, months, or years down the road, the rebombing can be justified to stop the nuclear development and another. And there's not a U.S. payment going to Iran in this framework deal. There is a conditional fund. It's financed by others, including those private investors. Iran does get access to its own money again, so the banking sanctions have been freed up, and they can only access this vaulted $300 billion that's funded by its neighbors if they change their behavior. And I might add, that's something far from a guarantee. Iran changing its behavior. Let's just look back. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. In closing, in this big news story, it looks to me like nothing much has changed. Bombs away, sadly. Bombs away. Thanks for listening. This is my take in random thoughts from a soon-to-be former therapist. Stay informed, stay sharp, and I'll see you next time.